In 1954, the very first Michigan Week was celebrated with the tagline, "This is your Michigan." 18 years after its inception, Dr. Anthony Witham, Superintendent of West Bloomfield Schools, presumed that it was time for the Greater West Bloomfield area to celebrate its Michigan. Dr. Witham assembled a team of local educators, government officials, businesses, and community leaders to put forth a week of events celebrating the cultures, traditions, talents, and values of Greater West Bloomfield. And no event was more revered than the Greater West Bloomfield Michigan Week Community Awards Breakfast, which has become a Michigan Week tradition in Greater West Bloomfield. Pastor Jack Freed and Jeff Leib, two of the first recipients of Michigan Minutemen Awards at the inaugural Michigan Week Community Awards Breakfast, sat down to discuss the history and tradition of Michigan Week in Greater West Bloomfield. Civic Center TV presents an exclusive interview with Pastor Jack Freed and Jeff Leib.
Well, I'm glad to be here to talk about Michigan Week with my friend Jeff Leib, and we are celebrating the 43rd year of consecutive Michigan Week breakfast, an event that is turned into be a really great event. And who would have thought that in 1972 when it began, it would still be rolling today? And who would have thought that Jeff Leib and I, who were friends back in that time, in fact, that's when our friendship began, that we'd still be around to be talking about Michigan Week. And I recall that I got a phone call from Tony Witham, who at that time was the superintendent of schools. Yeah. And he said, "I have something I want to talk to you about." And when I got there, it was about some event that was happening in the state of Michigan called Michigan Week. Do you remember that, or do you remember Tony?
I remember Tony, and I remember that Governor Milliken and the powers to be decided to honor the state of Michigan and all the communities within the state that wanted to participate and celebrate all the good things that happen in Michigan.
Right.
And we jumped in with both feet in West Bloomfield.
And Tony Witham was the first chairperson of Michigan Week, and in that time, the vice chairman then became the chairman the next year. And I believe the vice chairman at that time was Jack Doherty, the supervisor of West Bloomfield. And so he was really supportive of Michigan Week too. What do you recall about Jack? I think he was a real good friend of yours, wasn't he?
Very. I miss him a lot. And Jack was a consummate leader. He was born and raised in West Bloomfield Township, took a bus or hitchhiked every day to go to U of D High School and then University of Detroit, where he became an engineer. And of course at Doherty Estates, that was all his family. Doherty School, named after his dad. But Jack Doherty was a good leader, and he developed a good team, which I was honored to eventually become a trustee when he was supervisor.
In 1972, of course, West Bloomfield was a growing community, and I think he was the right person at the right time. And if you have a growing community, you need to have strong roots, and I think Michigan Week was one of those strong roots, and the fact that it has survived as long as it has means that the root has grown deep. And I think of the first Michigan Week event that we had, it was scheduled at the Rotunda Inn. Do you remember that?
I do. On Pine Lake Road.
Right, near the Pine Lake Golf Course.
Right.
The Rotunda Inn was where the first awards were given. And I think you and I were, at that time, given awards called Minuteman Awards. What do you suppose that Minuteman stood for?
I don't know, but it's the only Michigan Week breakfast that I missed.
Is that right?
Brian and I were on a vacation, and my father came and sat for me and accepted the award for me, which was, you keep reminding me of that.
In the beginning, there were only basically 4 awards that were given. And the major award, as I recall, was the Governor's Award, which was presented to a limited number of people in the state of Michigan. So just because we nominated somebody didn't mean that they were given that award. But at the time, I think the first awardee, or the first one that we nominated, was General Frederick Strong. And I think he was a graduate of the Michigan Military Academy, where Orchard Lake Schools is at this time. What do you remember about him?
Well, the Michigan Military Academy was, his father was the dean of the academy.
Is that right?
Yeah, and he graduated from there and then went to West Point. And as I recall, he was in Eisenhower's class at West Point.
Is that right?
Yeah, and General Strong was a wonderful, wonderful human being, very generous, as you recall. We spoke about it earlier. He donated Apple Island to the West Bloomfield School District as an open classroom.
What I remember about him was, I guess the first time that I really met him was at Michigan Week when he received the Governor's Award. And I thought, boy, that is something. This old guy is receiving an award as Governor's Award for Michigan Week. And now, as I've been reflecting this week, I think back, he was at that time about the same age that I am now. And I thought, am I as old as General Strong was at that time?
You know, his as I recall, his biggest claim to fame in the military service when he was a general, he built the Burma Road during World War II.
He did.
He was in charge of building the Burma Road, and got that done. And of course, in later life, or maybe he was even married during World War II, he married a Booth daughter, who from the Booth newspapers.
Is that
so
right?
they had some independent wealth, and but he was quite a guy.
Right.
Lucky
I
to know
remember
him.
too that one of the awardees was a person who was really active in our community and in the larger Detroit area, and that was Agnes Scott, and we all knew her as Aggie. Do you have any reflections of her and her work in the community?
I do. She was a tireless volunteer and tirelessly worked hard on Channel 56.
I think of Aggie because of her son Dave, who is leading Civic Center TV.
Oh, yes.
And Dave and my daughter went to school together, but Agnes's involvement with public TV must have rubbed off on her son because of his action in our community and in the wider sense.
We're the beneficiary of that.
Right. And I think of West Bloomfield now. What do you think about in terms of people supporting Michigan Week? And I guess comparing it to its start, why should something like this continue on and on in our community where it has dropped off and died in other communities? What's your thought on that?
Well, first of all, we have a beautiful community. We have a very active community. There's only over 20 parks that are owned by West Bloomfield Township. And with all of the synagogues and churches in the community where we have a recognition of spiritual foundations and all of the other days of Michigan Week that are celebrated, we have something special to celebrate every single day of the week.
It used to be Michigan Week was 1 week long,
Right.
and each day was to celebrate something about the community.
Correct.
But we have so much going on in our community that we have grown into Michigan Month, where we have something happening every day, and I think that that's fantastic.
We have a busy community, and it's a manifestation of so many busy people and volunteers.
Right.
People give of their time freely to make the community a better place to live.
And the question, since I was involved in Michigan Week for many years, attending committee meetings and that. The question has generally arisen, who owns Michigan Week, or who is responsible for it happening each year? And it just happens. It's what you might call a grassroots event, because it's just volunteers who step up and say, well, we'll organize it this year, we'll do this and that. And each year it rotates, where the award breakfast is held at different venues within the community. And as we talked about, Rotunda Inn was the first one, but can you remember some of the other venues where we have met?
Well, we met at Pine Lake Country Club often, and Orchard Lake Country Club. I think we met one year at Tam-O-Shanter Country Club, and this year we're meeting at Knollwood Country Club. All beautiful venues, all an opportunity in a big room to be surrounded by a lot of volunteers who are getting awards, but a lot of people who are behind the scenes in those activities too.
As I reflect on it, I'm proud to be in Michigan, even though I was not born and raised here as you were, but I'm proud to be in Michigan. I'm proud to call myself a Detroiter, even though I don't live in the city of Detroit. I think we are a part of the greater Michigan area, the greater southeastern Michigan area, and the greater community around us. And I hate to see us say, well, I'm from this place or that place. I like to say that I'm a part of a community, and I'm very proud to be a part of the state of Michigan and to have had a part in the founding of Michigan Week.
Like you, Jack, I'm a proud Michigander. Wherever I go, I display my Shinola watch, which is a wonderful conversation piece because that's now made in Michigan. I'm proud to be born and raised in Michigan and having lived in West Bloomfield since 1967. It's a long time. And these are where my roots have been planted. I'm lucky enough to have all of my children and all of my grandchildren here now. They all live in the West Bloomfield area, Greater West Bloomfield area. And so what we're doing now is benefiting all the kids in the community, and hopefully that will carry on. It's very meaningful to me to go to the Greater Michigan Week Breakfast, Greater West Bloomfield Michigan Week Breakfast, because I get to see so many of my friends from other communities that I don't see that often, and I just relish in the fact that they are all still active and still helping others. And that's really what it's all about, helping others. And I've enjoyed being your friend for many years.
Right. We are good friends. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, Jack.
Yeah.
Thanks for all you do.